Hello there, welcome back to the Crusader States Abridged campaign for Medieval 2 Total War Stainless Steel mod. Last time we were taking out tons of rebel settlements to make our Crusader States into something that looks like more of a continuous state. Still got a bit more work to do on that, 2 more rebel places to take, so we'll do that next. The only other important thing to remember is that we've allied to the Seljuks for some reason, so I'm going to try and avoid actually fighting them if I can. We're going to start things off here with a battle, because last time I had Aleppo under siege. I was just waiting for the siege to end. Now that it has, the AI is sallying on their final turn. We don't end up with the easiest looking situation actually, because there are tons of guys inside. We have a small advantage on the balance bar despite being outnumbered, because the enemy have just trash and we do have some good units. And things go okay right from the start actually, because the enemy aren't really doing any strategy. They sallied out in a very brute force sense. All of their men are just attack moving towards me out of formation. So first to arrive are the light cav. I counter by just using my heavy cav who will take them down. Then they've got horse archers, and even here they're not actually going to shoot at us, they're just running right at us, so fine. Again, I can counter with heavy cav from the right, and in the centre the infantry they're running into are our heavy spearmen, the Crusader sergeants. So that's fine, and now we've got them enveloped with our cav as those light cav rout. That's going to cause the horse archers to pretty much instantly rout as well, and that's the end of the enemy's cavalry attack. Now I need to get all of my men back out onto the wings and reform for the infantry fight. The cav will go around on both flanks of course, because the enemy have a couple of units of archers at the back to kill. As for the spearmen, the enemy's melee infantry, well, they're just kind of routing here. I don't really know what happened, but I struggled to even engage them. My own heavy infantry are charging forwards trying to get into the fight, but the enemy were just routing even without taking casualties. Their morale is super low for some reason right here. So that's going to be the end of this army basically. We now just have to completely surround and pound with the cav. The enemy are all going to try and rout back towards the town centre, and normally in a sally you kind of have to sit there, wait for them to go back to the town centre, unrout, come back outside, die again, rinse and repeat. But in this case I was able to wedge a unit of cav into the gate, which not only kills the enemies as they rout, but it allows us to capture the gate, and now we can go into the town and finish them off without the repeated back and forth. After a while we have done that, and the battle is very easily won. A very good victory. Only 60 or so casualties for 1,000 enemy kills. That's what we like to see, and that causes us to capture Aleppo of course. Now we've reached a milestone then, because this gives us continuous territory. Edessa is now part of our unified single block of land. I'm already looking at what to do next with the men in Aleppo, and I can see there's a rebel Motte and Bailey just over there near Antioch, so that's what I'm hoping to go for. Aleppo, by the way, really sucks. I've been saying that all my other settlements suck, but this one sucks to a whole new degree, because it doesn't have the population to upgrade above the lowest level castle, and that basically means it can't build or recruit anything. So it's nice to have for the taxes and the territory, but it's not going to be terribly useful to us for a while until we get that population up. Anyway, as you can see, I'm going to move out right away, taking all the men I can to go towards this other Motte and Bailey. Using this watchtower, I can see that there's not very much in it, so we are on. All I need to do is defeat the small army that's standing on our border with them, and might as well just get in there and do that right now. Like in the previous battle, we only have a small advantage, but in reality we have a big advantage, because the enemy units are all going to be weak against cav, and we do have a number of high quality cav units here. I foolishly made it a night attack, so I can't really tell what's going on, but it looks like the enemy are again routing before they even make contact with us, so that's good. This time probably because we shot them with arrows just invisibly in the darkness there. And you can see what I'm doing for my strategy, just going to try and surround and pound with cav. This army is really unbalanced. It only has 1 melee infantry unit, so our archers almost got charged at the front there, just about stopped the enemy, and now that they're somewhat standing still, in comes the cav for the massive rear charge, and while it's hard to see, in the darkness somewhere, we are destroying the enemy quite rapidly, and that's going to end the battle. In fact, there it is. We do need to continue the battle in this case, so we can get to the magic 85% of the enemy army killed. Once you do that in Medieval 2, the rest of the troops will die on the campaign map. So we just needed to make sure we did that, so that this force didn't just retreat and we end up having to fight it again. There we go. Once we get the magic number, we win a nice clean victory. It was so good in fact that we have the chance to adopt the commander of our force. This guy has absolutely loads of traits. I was hesitant to do so for several reasons. He's quite disloyal by the looks of things, so having a disloyal prince could be problematic. He also doesn't like the Byzantines or the Seljuks, our two allies, so that's going to cause some trouble, I expect. I don't think it actually does anything, but from a lore perspective it's not very good. He had some other trait, like leader pays no attention, and I quite liked that, because if you followed a lot of Offid Abridged campaigns, you know my downfall is often because I just don't notice something that could otherwise be very easily stopped. So the fact that this guy is aware I'm not really paying attention to him is quite good, I think, well observed. Anyway, I did end up actually adopting him, even though he's disloyal. I thought it might make him more loyal because I'm paying some attention to him. I adopted him, for God's sake. But no, that's not enough attention. I'm just not a very good dad, I guess. Never mind, he shall carry on. At this point in the campaign, we're starting to make some money, so it's time to put buildings in our settlements. I'm not really going to talk much about this. The only thing I wanted to mention is that in Medieval 2, most buildings do basically nothing but are very expensive, and you can see that on the Settlement Details tab. As you threaten to buy things, it shows how little extra money these buildings actually make you. We have to do it anyway to unlock better buildings later. But yes, very slowly we're going to start becoming more powerful as we get the buildings going and unlock new recruitment options. Now, some bad news at the start of the next turn. The castle I was going to attack is now packed with troops. The rebels do sometimes send their forces out of their castles and their settlements to walk around. So I guess these guys were just hidden nearby and they came back. It's packed with heavy infantry, and we've only got one infantry unit in this army, of course, which makes it very, very unsuitable for doing a siege attack. Knowing this, I decided, well, we're going to have to just abandon this attack. We'll go back to reduce or increase public order in our settlements and just tax them some more, but we will come back to that castle again for another attempt in the future. However, there is also a bit of yin and yang going on, because while forces wandered over and went into that castle, at Damascus, it appears that most of the garrison inside is not there right now, so this gives us a chance to sneak in and try to take it. Therefore, I gather up everything I can muster down in the south, and we go for it. The force that was in there, or most of the force that was in there, is now there, as my spy finds out. So all those units are now out of the garrison, leaving still perhaps half of their army inside, but we've got quite a lot of stuff here, including lots of good units and tons of generals, as you can see, who, if we can get past the walls, will be very good. So we're going to go for it. The only risk is that the enemy army might come back and attack us, although I say risk, that would actually be good because it would force a sally and we wouldn't have to fight over the walls. Even if it's a strong enemy force, that's worth the trade-off. As it happens, they don't, so after one turn I've got a few bits of equipment, considered waiting another turn to get some siege towers, but I thought, well, we can probably just do it as we are, so let's go for these walls. In a moment of character development, this time I'm bothering to check where the enemy have deployed before I make my attack, just in case it's worth not making any of the initial moves to see if we can save some lives. I am going to not advance with my ram from the south because there are 2 units of archers covering the approach. What I am going to do though is advance anyway with my trash carrying ladders, and they will get shot instead. But these Marinade units that are carrying the ladders are so bad that this is actually to our advantage to get them killed. They're extremely expensive to upkeep and they are terrible. They have low stats, and this battle really proved how bad they were because I sent them up the wall to fight against the enemy archers and they're going to really struggle. The archers are focusing down my knights who were climbing uncontested. They probably could have been contested, but the AI missed with their redeployment of some spears. We're going to ignore those spears on the wall. We don't want the knights up on the wall. We saw previously that they're very inefficient fighting on the wall because you can't make very good use of their high attack abilities. So we'll send them down to look for a target. Meanwhile, the number on the unit card of the Marinade tells us they're dying rapidly in melee to these enemy archers. They are really struggling. We're killing some of the archers too, but overall that assault is not going to work out for us. At least the knights do get what I was looking for. Some levied spears come over from somewhere and start engaging the knights in open battle. So while we're outnumbered, that should be a fine melee. However, the enemy archers, because they're not really being distracted by this terrible Marinade attack, they're still able to shoot down at the knights in the fight. So this could be dangerous. We are going to gradually lose men as the fight goes on to that attack. As also mentioned last time, ranged attacks are the weakness of this particular kind of knight unit, so that's trouble. My ram at the east gate opens it up, and here we're going to have a better fight because this gate is defended only by loads of cav, and I can attack with my Crusader sergeants, so we're going to have that advantage against cav, especially because they're just standing there. They can't use any of their charge bonus against us. Therefore we just have to gradually grind our way through them, and I can even send in my heavy cav since they are also inferior counter to light cav, and grind through them slightly faster because of that. So that's what we'll do. The east gate will eventually be won, but the south gate situation, and more importantly the knight situation, is what I was really worried about. The archers have actually stopped firing at the knights, which is great, because now we're just slaughtering these levy spears basically without casualties. We lost a handful of guys, but very few. But the reason the archers have stopped shooting them is just because they're now shooting at something else. I'm making the attack on the south gate, and we're going to lose a bunch of guys doing this. I was going to wait until the archers were dead, but it's not going to happen anytime soon, so we're just going to take the losses. This means the knights have an easy time finishing off the spears, and we can now send them up the wall to deal with the archers and distract them. That should save a few lives. And again, many of the lives we're losing are the trash marinais, who are okay to lose, or even favourable to lose because of their high upkeep, as I said. At the east gate, things are going very well. One unit of cav is dead, the other one is now surrounded, so we'll easily take them down, and then can continue on towards the town centre. Once we got the south gate open, the units around here started trying to run back towards the town centre, and that's not going to work out very well for them, especially because 2 units of archers are going to be running right in front of a nice open gate that our heavy cav can now charge through and annihilate them. Not to mention the infantry being there should do alright as well. We did have some trouble though. There was some kind of pathfinding glitchage going on, and lots of our units got stuck or refused to attack the enemy. But as you can see, the group from the east has already captured the centre. That means their retreat will be cut off no matter what happens, and we'll eventually win when that timer goes down no matter what happens. We didn't have to do that in the end, because gradually the enemy are all routing as they get stuck in our units and we kill them, especially this unit of levy spears, which is getting stuck against the knights, and they're having a great time absolutely slaughtering them as they try to route through them to go down the stairs. That unit is history. They are never going to make it to the centre. Soon enough everything is routing and we can claim victory. Still kind of costly, lost like 300 guys taking this place. And you can see our Crusader sergeants are starting to wither out, and with them we're losing our attacking potential because we don't have the ability to make some regular melee units. So we can't replace them, we can't really make a balanced army anymore as they gradually die. However, the immediate threat is over. We don't have to fight anyone for a while. The capture of Damascus gives us not only theoretical continuity of territory, but practical continuity, because the mountains to the west were impassable. So previously we were actually split between the northern and southern parts. Now we can walk up and down our own territory as we please. Plus, this capture adds to our income, and we are now making a couple of thousand per turn, so we can use that to make 1 or 2 buildings each turn, and because the buildings take a couple of turns to make, you can get to the point where all of your towns are building something all at the same time, and you start spiralling up to develop your territory. It's not always the most efficient thing to do, because you could just spend money on stealing someone else's territory instead, but I'm going to do it here just because we need some development to happen before we get some units. And by the way, I wanted to mention that I was checking out what all the buildings do, and really it seems that building farms is the way forwards. You get more money than building things like trade ports, and they increase your population growth, which gives you extra money in the long run through taxes. So if anyone happens to be an expert and actually knows what a good build order is for a settlement with basically nothing in it, do let me know. It will be too late of course, but might be handy for future reference. After the first turn of my booming plan, some interesting things happen. First I noticed the rebels up at the top left moved forces out of their castle, so I started thinking maybe we can actually go after them again. However, there was a more pressing bit of news. Look at this, the Fatimid Caliphate has suddenly declared war on us. So, my plan to develop our economy and then eventually take those guys down is not going to happen because they're coming at us right now. And that's really a problem, because what are we supposed to do? We literally can't recruit troops. At most we can have the odd unit of spear levy here and there, like there at Jerusalem, you can see. But generally, we're just going to have to use those units from the start of the campaign and see what we can do, and hope that the Fatimids don't really send anything at us. So I'm going to take the guys who took Damascus and start moving them down towards Jerusalem. We won't be able to get there in time if we get attacked right away, but hopefully soon we'll have something that looks like an army together down there. And also, because I'm incredibly cheeky, I am going to send my northern army off to attack that rebel place. I could and probably should send them down to help out with this dangerous Fatimid situation, but, well, as I said, it's just cheekiness, just pure cheekiness. We're going to go for it anyway, so I go and besiege that castle and we'll hope that the rebels don't come back and then we can get a cheeky, relatively easy capture. All I can do against the Fatimids is send my ship to go and blockade their ports, eventually at least, for now. We can't recruit units even though we have the money to do so and plenty of spare income, so we're just going to have to sit here and see what happens. Handily enough, the Fatimids don't actually make an attack during their first turn. They walk right up to the gates of Jerusalem, but that's not a siege. They stopped outside it. So we don't have to worry about that. We are going to be able to reinforce with the rest of our men from Damascus and get our defences in order. But before we look at any of that, we have to come back to this rebel situation because the rebels did return, so I am now forced to fight them in a field battle. They've got quite a lot of that Armenian infantry that we had some of somewhere, where it has really low attack but really high defense, so they're just a tanky unit. I thought, well, let's just not bother. I actually will go down to the Fatimids with this army, I was thinking. But they're not going to let me do it. They actually press the attack. And we end up with pretty much the same battle but worse, because not only are the enemy's reinforcements now sort of coming onto the field behind us, but this is no longer a fight over the settlement. So if we do win, we can't have any chance to take the settlement at the same time. All bad stuff then, but I've put my foot in it. We can't do anything else but try to fight this battle now. The annoyance of the situation prompted me to go and look at that leader pays no attention thing, because I thought that guy's probably feeling pretty left out right now and probably wondering why he wasn't taken down to fight the Fatimids. But anyways, we're going to go into this battle. We're going to look at this in a strange sort of way. You'll see why in a second. Here's what happened at first. The enemy had to charge right up a nice hill to get to us, but it doesn't do us any good because in this game there isn't really a counter to heavy cavalry. That's just how Medieval 2 is designed. So my spearmen just absolutely eat a heavy cavalry charge right from the front, but it's not like in other Total Wars where that's the hard counter to a cavalry charge. Here you just get annihilated. So we lose a massive portion of our melee line right at the start of the battle. I try to counter by sending my general to rear attack the enemy's heavy cav, while my cav are going around the other side to take out all of the enemy's archers and then prepare for a general rear attack against their line. However, my general actually died in that fight. I think it was because the enemy general also jumped in and flank attacked me, so that was a very dangerous situation. And even though my guy had the spear that killed Jesus Christ, it couldn't kill the enemy general, and in fact he got killed. I guess he dropped it because it said that caused instant death. So that's all very bad. It seemed like we might be able to get away with this though, because our cav rear attack is routing everything, and gradually we're defeating this first army before the reinforcement army shows up, which is the ideal situation when you're facing multiple forces. So we've cleared that up and you can see the reinforcements over there in the distance. However, the game then freezes, and this reminded me that yes, in Medieval 2 most mods basically crash all the time unless you install the large address aware patch that fixes a memory issue. So I went away to install that and then came back to do the battle again, this time with a bit more experience and foresight of what could go wrong, thanks God. The first thing I did differently was have my archers target the enemy's cav right from the beginning to try and get a few kills before they hit us. Plus, we can try to charge the enemy cav ourselves, because as long as the enemy don't technically count as being charging, they won't get their charge bonus, and moving doesn't always count as charging, so if you can just kind of run into them before they get properly going, then you can avoid being absolutely annihilated by the charge. That's why, as you can see here, I'm ordering my men to just charge right downhill at the enemy, and ignoring any potential use of getting them to charge uphill at me. They actually do charge uphill at me right there, and we do get annihilated. In fact, we get annihilated even worse than we did in the first attempt, and my general is also attacked by the enemy general again. So far, is going a bit worse than last time. However, we're more prepared. My own cav immediately enveloped the enemy's heavy cav on the left, and they just die. So that ended up being a trade really. We lost a spear levy unit for all intents and purposes, but they lost a heavy cav unit, so that's fine ultimately. Then, my cav rush out to attack the enemy's archers unopposed, plus the nearby enemy spears rout so we can chase them down, and I've got my own spears rear attacking the enemy general, and he dies as a result. That's looking good. However, another unit of heavy cav arrives from the enemy's reinforcement army. We're out of position and this could be very dangerous, but I can't tell where they were going there. They don't manage to get a proper charge off, they just end up getting stuck in melee with my levied spears. That's perfect. It still doesn't help the levied spears, you can still see the numbers flashing on their card. They're being annihilated just because they're bad and heavy cav are good, even in the situation where they're supposed to be weak. However, they will be dying. They're killing a lot of us, but we're also going to be killing a lot of them because we do have them surrounded with spears who do have some sort of bonus attacking cav. That means it's still going to be a good trade, even though we lost a load of guys and had a unit routed by that engagement. The enemy lost a cav unit and that's just so much more valuable. It was all fine. The enemy's archers are chased away and now we turn to face the reinforcement army. My cav are going to circle around to be behind them and everything else is just running away. I want to try and get out of the way and delay this engagement a bit while my cav get into position. We're taking a lot of casualties. To the enemy shooting us with arrows, you can't really see, as you can see when you're playing. The arrows are there somewhere, but there are no projectile trails. So my archers are being killed by the enemy's archers, but said enemy archers are going to be in trouble now that my cav are back here. One unit's going to get absolutely flattened here. We've also got some Armenian infantry who are kited onto the cav. They're going to be kited just forever because the cav can easily escape them. That keeps that unit out of the fight, which is great because the main fight between my spears and the enemy's Armenian infantry is going to be a losing fight eventually. We're overwhelmed and outflanked. We're really waiting for our cav to get the work done, gradually killing all of these archers so that we can then turn them around and start attacking the Armenian infantry. Just have to rely on my terrible spear militia's morale to hold out a bit longer so our formation remains somewhat intact and the enemy are kept in place. There we go, all of the enemy's archers are now gone. Our advisor just told us that defeat is nearly certain or something, but we've got a turning point. We can charge into rear attack the enemy. Now the advisor seems a bit more optimistic because we start seeing some big rout from the enemy units and the balance bar swinging in our favour. Now we have got them because these Armenian infantry probably can't do anything against cav. We can easily run away and charge them from the front, which is enough to kill them. So it's over for the enemy. Their troops rout, but we do need to continue the battle because we don't have the magic 85%. And also I think when you're being attacked by two armies, you have to get them both down to 85% or kill 85% of both. But of course there's no way to know which kills you've got so far are towards which armies total. So really to be safe when you're facing multiple forces, you just have to kill as many people as you can and hope you get all of the armies involved. So on we go, chasing down the nice slow enemies with our cav. That's all easy enough. Once I'm bored of that, we will quit and we get a heroic victory. We did lose half of our men, but the enemy lost pretty much everything. In fact, they did lose everything, so that's good. And many of my dead spear militia who got annihilated by that early cavalry charge will come back. In fact, about half a unit of them came back. So we end up not being totally annihilated by that fight. We've still got a somewhat holding together force with a rough balance of melee and archer and cav units. And of course, we can go on to make this siege of the castle as I originally planned. One unit inside, that's going to be a victory eventually. So all's well that ends well. But can we say the same for this Fatimid situation? Well, we'll get into this mess in the next part.